reason why it got so big is that they did that boy like that. They shot him in the top of his head, left him out there, disrespected him. The people rose up, and the local police was so disrespectful that the people just took over the town.
Since I'm in a position to talk to these kids and they listen, I ain't no politician, but I trapped and did go to prison. Now I'm caught up in a system where the motive's apparent. I'm just a product of the apartments probably built for my parents or my parent, but who caring? They planted go figure. Cop killing me, just a nigga. We protest gorillas.
Almost 2 months to the date of the controversial shooting death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, another officer-related shooting death of a black teenager happened last night in the Shaw neighborhood, just 11 miles south of Ferguson.
Protests and looting broke out Wednesday night in St. Louis after police shot and killed an 18-year-old black man. Officials say the man pointed a gun at officers.
I want to show you some video of this shooting seen from earlier this week from Page and Walton in case you aren't familiar. Now, these results are significant because they show that the man killed, 18-year-old Mansour Balbay, died from a single gunshot wound to the back.
Police have now identified the 18-year-old who died last night, Vonderit D. Myers.
They argue to be an unfair, trigger-happy police force and a war zone reaction to civilian protests. Unfortunately, this is far from the first time we've heard this story in America.
My name's Streets G4G. I'm from Virginia. I'm actually an artist that picked up the video thing by way of wanting to shoot my own videos. That kind of spilled into me doing other artists' music videos, documentaries, things like this. I recently just got booked to come to Ferguson to help with the media side of the protests for Mike Brown. Basically, like the reason I'm doing this docuseries is because I just wanted to shed light on how long had they been doing this? Like, what kind of people would be okay with this type of treatment of people? I've seen people get on TV and cry about gorillas being shot, dogs being shot. Like, why is this happening? Where did this come from? So, I'm gonna let a frontline protester step in and basically give you guys history of this whole police department versus the citizens of St. Louis. Welcome you guys to the first episode of the Fergsuon Rebellion. With no further ado, Tory Russell.
Tory, are you urging calm regardless of the decision? What are you asking for in that regard?
We've done 20 plus nonviolent direct action trainings. We've trained up to 1,000 new people in that. I am urging calm. I'm urging calm for the police officers to not pepper spray me, tear gas me, mace me, and shoot rubber bullets. And some nights they shot people with real bullets. I think people need to urge the police to be calm. Stop hurting kids. Stop traumatizing our communities.
So the story of Dred Scott really is one that applies really to all black people today. In the city of St. Louis, you really can't organize and think about black people and human rights without thinking about Dred Scott. 1847, if I'm to be exact, Dred Scott was a slave. He had one slave owner who passed on to another slave owner after he died. On that trip of going from the south to the north, he went through like St. Louis, which was a slave, but he also went through free slave states and doing like small odd jobs. He actually found his wife in the northern states. Surprisingly, he ended up buying her freedom from somebody in the northern state. But the thing about it was, as he passed hand to hand to slave, I guess he came to the realization that he was no longer in a slave state. And so I would say, imagine somebody being a slave and being taken to a free place, seeing all these free people and seeing all the rights of the people and saying, hey man, I think I should be free. One day, I think they signed a petition, or he refuted the fact that he was a slave anymore because he was actually in free land. They kicked the first court case out on technicality, but the next time they went to the Missouri Supreme Court stating that he was a free man. They ended up overturning it so much that it went to the Supreme Court in the 1850s. And what transpired was, yes, his wife was in a free state when they became married, and though he lived there for years in a free area, yes, his slave owners traded hands while he was in a free state. So simply, he basically became a slave to a person in a free state. The Supreme Court in in the 1850s determined that no black person under the U.S. Constitution had human rights. The Supreme Court Justice actually said that the Constitution was not written with the rights of black people in mind. If you can believe that. And they actually said this out of their mouth. And if you apply the Dred Scott case to anybody, be it Tamir Rice or Mike Brown or Eric Garner, you're seeing that it plays out in the court system, in the courtrooms day by day, that a black man in this country, be it 1850, 1950, or 2018, black people don't have rights under the U.S. Constitution.
Alright, so I can catch y'all up. Basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of giving y'all the backstory of St. Louis, so we can kind of eliminate the irony in these situations, because it's not coincidentally happening that black people are being terrorized. I don't want to make it seem like this is just something that we're just putting up to make a complaint. Nah, this is facts in history that this has been going on in St. Louis this amount of time. As you can see, this goes back to Dred Scott. That was 1900s. Like I said, I was just catching y'all up on the history of St. Louis, so when we get into these other chapters, you'll understand exactly where it's coming from. This is the root of the tree that we about to break down. And this is only the first episode, so you know, hopefully by the time we break this down, you have the same understanding that I got in a visit of 2-3 days to Ferguson, Missouri. The way they're being treated out there is not humane. Ordinary, yeah, it's ordinary. Now it's ordinary, but it's definitely not humane. The next episode, we're gonna show you how the East St. Louis area went from a white people's town to a black people's town. Because you're gonna be surprised how that happened, and once you know how that happened, the root to this tree will be exposed. Then we start working our way on up. Like I said, Streets G4G. If you like that song in the intro that's coming on that I was rapping, it's called I'm Black, and it's by me, myself, Streets G4G, produced by Harp. You can go download that at the links, and see you next time, guys. I'm not sure if you guys know or not, but Mike Brown's mother is now running for city council. So I'm gonna run her commercial at the end of this. Y'all go find that info, make sure y'all get out there and vote. Because it's time for a change, man. It's time for a change. St. Louis, I'm rocking. You know what I'm saying? I'm Virginia. 2 times, they know that. You know what I'm saying? But I was just so devastated by y'all's history of this police versus the citizen stuff that I just felt like morally obligated. I had to contribute where I can contribute.
Almost 4 years ago to this day, I ran down this very street. And my son was covered in a sheet. It broke me, you know? It brought me down to my knees. It made me feel crippled, as if I could do nothing else anymore from that moment. But as time went on and I stayed surrounded by support and motivational people who knew what happened was wrong and didn't give up the fight, I learned to walk again. And this is one of my first steps, running for Ferguson City Council of 2019. This is so important to me, and I know a lot of people may ask what makes me qualified, but I'll tell you, if a mother had to watch her son lay in the street for 4.5 hours and watch a community be completely disrespected by elected officials that we elected, what would you do? You would stand up and you would fight it. I'm not going to give up. And when I'm elected, I will be the people's voice and not just the people's choice.
The
reason why it got so big is that they did that boy like that. They shot him in the top of his head, left him out there, disrespected him. The people rose up, and the local police was so disrespectful that the people just took over the town.
Cause I'm in a position to talk to these kids and they listen. I ain't no politician, but I trapped and did go to prison. Now I'm caught up in a system where the motive's apparent. I'm just a product of the apartments probably built for my parents or my parent, but who caring? They planted, go figure. Cop killing me, just a nigga. We protest gorillas.